Hello again, my dudes, this is Kadima with my first build video for Lies of P, the build that I used to beat New Game and New Game Plus, so you are to expect a very high level build. This should not discourage you from using this build though. If you're just starting the game, you just have to adjust the leveling as you go. So let's start with my current character. I am at level 164. 50 vitality, 28 vigor, 64 capacity, motivity 5, technique 50, and advanced 6. So, again, as I said, when you start the game, you won't be having these numbers, so I will tell you how I leveled up my character. So, first investment for about the first 10 levels all went into vitality, and then the next 10 levels I divided 5 into vigor, 5 into technique, because as you can see I'm a technique based build. All my damage comes from the technique. And then as you keep getting more levels and you start finding more gear, you can put some points into capacity. I did choose to do so for two reasons. Not only because it increases the weight that I can carry without me having to sacrifice rings to use something that keeps me from fat rolling, but also because it increases your amount of Legion available when you invest into capacity. And with the build that I intended to use, I knew I would be requiring quite a lot of Legion because I'm using the blocking shield. The reason why I'm using the blocking shield is because I find that it makes parrying way easier whilst allowing you to not take that much damage. So it's a safe way to play the game, especially against bosses or against mini bosses. It keeps you safe whilst trying to get some damage in between their combos and between their hits. Now, for my weapons, I have been using the electric coil stick head with the Tyrant Murder dagger. When I got into New Game Plus, I got a second Tyrant Murder dagger, so I'm using the handle for both my weapons. The first one, as I said, is the electric coil stick head. The second one is the Salamander dagger blade. As you can see, I'm using the shield Legion arm, the Aegis. Now, the reason for these weapons I will explain in a moment. For my amulets, I'm using the Patience amulet. I'm also using the Blue Guardianship amulet, which you get the +1 version in New Game Plus. I'm using the Iron Wall amulet, and then this amulet changes according to the situation. If I'm in an area that I'm fighting puppets, I will be using the Puppet Destroyer amulet ring. If I'm in an area where I'm fighting humans, I will be using the Murderer Puppets amulet. If I am fighting carcasses, again, Carcass Butcher amulet. So this is the ring that keeps changing. As for the weapons, the reason for having these two, it's quite simple. Puppets are weak to electric blitz, and carcasses are weak against fire. When fighting humans are weak against acid, but I found that instead of just changing into an acid weapon, I would just focus on using the dagger and trying to get them parried with a perfect guard system, and from there try to get my damage, which wasn't going to be as good as when fighting other either puppets or carcasses. But when fighting humans, I would just change the ring to humans and go with that. For my defensive parts, I'm using the Lada F350 frame, the Lada large capacity insulation converter, the Lada shock cartridge, and the Lada spaced armor as liner. As you can see, I've got +1 versions of them all. Again, I have just completed New Game Plus. These, of course, can change according to the situation, but I find these to be my standard. If I am then in a place where I am more likely to get other sorts of damage coming, such as overheat or decay, I change accordingly. But as a default, this is what I use. This one never really changes because this one just really boosts your physical damage reduction by quite an amount, although the weight is 43, and this is the reason why, because these pieces are so heavy, That's why I got capacity all the way up to 64, higher than everything else. The reason for this is because I want to be able to be below this slightly heavy. So if you are below 60% equip weight, you will be normal rolling, you will be having your normal attacks, your normal stamina regen. It won't affect your playstyle that much. If you are okay with fat rolling, you don't have to invest that much into capacity. Now, for the Legion arm, as I said, and as you can see, I'm using the Aegis, but if you look at my available Legion bar, you can see that I can just block for a very long time. Also, every time I get a perfect card, it does damage to the enemy. And then I can just make them stun and get those fatal strikes going. So that's pretty much the idea of this build. You can also just dodge, because being at low equip load, it allows you to be quite maneuverable. You get those jumping R2 in. As for the Fable Arts, both my weapons just boost their damage. In this case, it boosts the electricity damage. If I change into the dagger, it boosts the fire damage, so the weapon will be doing fire damage. And you can make the best out of that, depending on the enemies. As you can see, the enemy is now burning. They take quite about 50 damage per second, as you can see by the numbers rising, and it lasts for a little bit. It's not massive. Now, something else that you might be curious about is my my P organ, which I will show you straight away what it looks like, which investment I have made. Again, keep in mind that I am at the end of New Game Plus, so I have collected quite a lot of quartz. You, from the start of the game, won't have access to that many quartz, but I will let you know how I invested my points, so you have an idea how you can make this character and how you can make it work. So from the beginning, when you are getting to phase 1, of course, the first investment should be in increasing the pulse cells. I have chosen to enhance the charge stagger attack, which enhances the stagger attack of charged attacks, and enhances the guard regain recovery when attacking enemies. Because sometimes the parry will fail, you won't be able to parry every single hit. You are blocking the attacks and you are trying to parry while maintaining the block up. Sometimes the damage will chip through the shield, so you will have your guard regain going on. So it's good to have this so you get some of that health back. Second investment, I find it very important right from the start of the game, because it makes combat way easier, way more fluid. It's the link dodge, which enables another dodge in the middle of a dodge motion. For this case, my quartz were invested in lowering the damage while dodging. Of course, it's connected, and enhancing fatal attack damage. So every time I do a fatal attack, it is increased damage. This one I didn't invest straight away, I did leave it for the end, and the same applies for this one. I'll come back shortly. The other thing I did invest straight away, again when going to phase 2, is increased pulse cells again, and I have applied the enhanced perfect guard destruction, which increases destruction damage to enemies when a perfect guard is successful. Because this build, although is a technique based build, our focus is to get perfect guards going on. So every time we get a perfect guard, you get destruction damage increase. Destruction damage basically is your critical hits will do more damage. That's what destruction damage is in this game. The other investment was into lowers charge attack when stamina consumption. Basically, my charge attacks consume less stamina, because my playstyle is basically trying to deflect to get them staggered. Once you get them staggered, you do the charge attack to get them open for a fatal strike, so this is quite useful. The second investment in phase 2 was the rising dodge, again to keep combat fluid and to give you some safety, because sometimes you get hit and you end up on the ground. It is nice to be able to quickly rise up and dodge away, especially because certain enemies, certain mini bosses, and I can think of those robots that are in the fire area that hit you with a shovel, they will continuously hit you while you are already on the ground before you have the chance to get up, and you can end up dying like that. This will prevent this from happening. The investment in terms of the quartz was into perfect guard destruction, which again increases the destruction damage to enemies when a perfect guard is successful, again increasing the critical strike damage and increasing the maximum number of post cells with increased post cells 3. The second investment from here, these two I got it again later on in the day, in the game. Actually, I'm lying. I actually got the add amulet slot straight away as well. So my first two investments was these two on phase 1, and then in phase 3 I invested in all these 3. Again, the amulet slot, it's vital for this build because you need all those amulets working all together. So the investment was with enhancing the recovery effect of pulse cells and reducing the stamina consumed when dashing. We dash a lot because we are running around, we are rolling around, so having reduced stamina consumption is quite important. Moving forward, I invested in phase 3 only in the enhanced post cell recovery with the enhanced charge stagger. Again, we are doing more damage with charged attacks in terms of stagger damage. This does not increase the amount of damage that you do, it just increases the stagger damage. So your enemies will be more likely to break guard and be exposed to fatal strikes. Also invested in lowers guard regain reduction, which lowers the guard regain reduction for the enemies, not yourself. No, actually, this one is the one for you. It prevents your guard regain to deplete as fast, and the Legion magazine effect enhance, because again I'm using the Legion arm to block, so our Legion bar keeps depleting over time. So it is important to have a way to use the Legion magazines and get as much Legion back as possible. Moving to phase 4. Again, my first investment was into adding another amulet slot, and I've invested the quartz points into lowers natural recovery upon weapon attack, so it reduces the amount of the enemy's natural HP recovery when attacking them with a weapon. As you probably noticed, your enemies also have the guard regain ability. This prevents them from recovering that much HP between hits. The next point was into lowers guard regain reduction, same as the one before. It lowers the guard regain reduction, so your guard regain doesn't deplete as fast. And again, charge Legion when eliminating an enemy. It charges a certain amount of Legion when an enemy is eliminated. Because we are using the shield, again, as every time you manage to kill an enemy, it's nice to have that little bit of Legion back into being available. From here, I have invested into this one. Perfect guard causes stiffness. Breaks the enemy's stance when a perfect guard is successful. For this build, I find this very, very useful. We are so focused on perfect guard that being able to stagger the enemies and cause them stiffness is actually a vital point for this build. It basically increases the stagger and breaks their stance frequently, and you can see that in the little examples I'm going to give at the end of this video. The investment was into increased Fable Arts effect duration. You might notice that I did not increase the Fable Arts damage, because I am not really using Fable Arts that do damage. I'm using Fable Arts that have an effect. They either boost the electricity on my baton, or they increase the fire damage from my knife. So having this allowing my Fable Arts to last a little bit longer is actually quite useful. The other investment was obviously into increased pulse cells, which increased the maximum number of pulse cells available. And last, charge Legion when eliminating an enemy. Same as the one before, it's nice to have that little bit of Legion back each time you manage to kill an enemy. When unlocking phase 5, my only investment at this point, which was by the end of new game, was into retain guard 2. This was my only investment. Every other point that you see, this one and the ones below, are from New Game Plus. Now this one, obviously my very first choice was into increasing post cells 5. I have a total of 11 available post cells. And then with the next one was enhance fatal attack damage. Again, because we are breaking their guard so often, this is a nice little boost to the fatal attacks. And then I got the charges favorable upon post cell use, because we are using post cells, either we like it or not. It's how you heal. It's nice to have a little bit of fable back when just simply using them. And then most important for this build is the auto charge legion. It automatically charges consumed legion, so you don't really need to do anything. You are just naturally charging legion. Once I completed New Game Plus, once I completed New Game, and I went into New Game Plus, Phase 6 becomes available, and then my investment was, of course, my very first investment was into the enhanced post-cell recovery, and I have applied increased post-cells, increased number. That's why we got the 11. And then I got the enhanced attack when HP is maximum. So basically you do more damage if your HP is at maximum. Again, lowers charge attack stamina consumption, so charge attacks consume less stamina. And Legion magazine effect enhance, as explained before, because we want as much Legion as possible at all times. Now this one is a very useful one that I actually changed my build at some point in the middle of the play, because I found out that my weapon was constantly just getting depleted. Now, being this build a perfect guard focused technique build, having this little perk allows you never ever to worry about your weapon durability. I have never repaired my weapon again since I put this on. So the investments in this case was into increase an enemy's stagger duration, lowers the damage received when dodging, charge favor when a perfect guard is successful, again because this is focused on perfect guard, increase the effect duration of special greenstones. This was mainly because at some point I started using the greenstone that allows you to have perfect guard automatically, which is perfect because this is a perfect guard focused build. The investment later on, this was the very last one I've done, was because I had nothing better to invest on, was to add more weapon slots. As you can see, I'm not even using them, but the investment in terms of the points themselves was into attack when durability is at maximum, enhance resistance, lower legion consumption when HP is low, and increase the effect duration of consumables, such as things that allow you to reduce the chances of getting status effect. Then moving on, when I started getting more points, I started investing into increasing the staggered window, again lowering the weapon durability consumption. Again, this all helps prevent that you need to repair your weapon, enhancing resistance to attribute status, lowering weapon durability consumption for dash and dodge attacks, and again enhances the charge effect of Legion magazine. The investment on this one, increased special grindstone users, was again later on in New Game Plus, just because I found that certain fights, if I had the greenstone available a second time, it would make my life much easier, because I wouldn't have to rely on having available Legion for that period of time. I would be doing automatic perfect guards. The investments again, enhanced weapon attack when durability is at maximum. Because we keep getting durability back when we do perfect dodges, our weapon tends to be at maximum durability pretty much the whole time, and this is very useful because it just increases the damage. Increased resistance to special status ailments, and lowers weapon durability consumption of stabbing weapons. Both my weapons count as stabbing weapons because I'm using the dagger handle, and that's where the investment comes from. Now, when I started getting excessive amounts of points that I didn't really need, I got extra fable slots with enhanced ambush stagger, again, this is very useful. And auto charge pulse when discharge. This is quite important. Maybe I should have actually got this one prior, but I decided to get it only later on in the game. So basically your pulse cells automatically charge without you having to hit enemies or do anything, just automatically. And they do take a little bit. It's not like this. They take about 2 to 3 minutes, maybe more, to completely charge from scratch without hitting any enemies. But considering that if you hit the enemy in between, this process just speeds up a little bit. Now, having the stagger window, increasing the stagger duration, lowering the damage received from fury attacks. I just thought that at this point there was nothing really that vital that I needed. I thought this would be a good investment. Retain guard when receiving damage, increasing the duration effect again of the Fable arts, and guard regain recovery when attacking enemies. So every time I attack enemies, my guard regain is slightly higher. Now, these were pretty much the investments on the build when it comes to the quartz points. You are more than free to adapt to how you play the game and what you want to prioritize. I found that this way of having the P organ organized worked for me because, again, this is a technique build, but it's mostly focused on perfect guarding. And I'm going to show you the examples on how to do the perfect guard. I'm just going to show you, I am just about to finish New Game Plus, and then I'll start New Game Plus Plus. I am considering changing to maybe a quality build and use different weapons, and maybe get the grindstones with different weapon effects, just for the fun of it, just to have a different experience. But yeah, that's pretty much the build. I will go and show you some examples of fights on how the build performed against certain enemies. Thank you so much for making it this far. I appreciate you very much. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask in the comment section down below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. It really helps us reach the 2.5k subscribers. And when I do so, as I said in my previous videos, I'll be doing another giveaway on the channel. So feel free to join. Thank you so much for watching. Now let's go for the fighting examples. So in this first example, I'm just fighting a carcass bear. It's not like a boss. I'm trying to avoid bosses because I don't want to do any spoilers for those who haven't reached certain areas so far. The only boss I'm going to showcase will be the King of Puppets, because I assume most people would have made it to chapter 5 by now, and I think that's when you fight the King of Puppets. But take notice of how I just bring my shield up, and I'm waiting for that moment to parry, to tap the perfect guard button. Now, again, you will see that I don't always get this right. Sometimes I get hit. In this case, I did manage to break his guard. After that many perfect guards, you do quite a lot of stagger damage, and the enemy is finished. Now, for the King of Puppets, as I was just saying, I decided to showcase this fight because this is how I like to demonstrate how important the having not fat rolling is, especially for a fight like this. My maneuverability is quite good. I managed to avoid quite a lot of hits just by dodging. Yeah, you might question that I'm using the Spirit, the Spectre, I mean. I don't really find them useful, to be honest. I just find it funny that they do keep the boss distracted for the first 20 seconds of the fight. After that, they dead. I just find them that they help with the first 20 seconds, and that's it. Now, as you can see, I'm landing some electricity damage because this is a puppet, so I'm using the electricity damage here. On the bear, I was using the fire. As I explained previously, fire is good against carcasses, electricity is good against puppets. I actually got hit there, I don't really know how. My Spectre is pretty much dead. As I said, they don't last very long. I just find them funny to help at the start of the fight, and that's it. That's what they're there for. I have completed New Game without using them at all, so on my New Game Plus, I thought, why not? I'll use them as a distraction. In any case, as you can see here, I do make quite a few mistakes, but that's the good thing about this build, is that even if you make mistakes, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are done and there's nothing you can do to come back onto the fight. Because I'm got so much maneuverability, I actually am allowed to pop in and out. Unfortunately, I wasn't timing those fatal fury attacks from the boss that well this time. I actually allowed him to hit me quite a few times, which was unnecessary. Now these ones are quite easy to dodge. I just find that if you dodge to the left, you will avoid them most times. When he swings his arms, I try to dodge to the right. I find it more effective to be able to dodge. When he does stuff like that, I just dodge in front of him or towards it, and it helps prevent being hit. Again here, you saw I lifted the shield up to try to then parry it, but I mistimed pressing the button, so I didn't get that parry going on. But as you can see, he is now open to a charge attack and a guard break. I get the guard break, I buff my electric baton, and look at that much damage from the fatal strike. Now my weapons are changed and modified with the technique crank, so they scale out of my technique. Again here I got hit. I couldn't believe my luck. I kept getting hit during this fight. But as I was saying, my weapons are scaling with technique because it is a technique based build, which I'm going to change for my next playthrough. I'm going to try to do a quality build. But yeah, I mean, that's how my damage is based. As you can see, I got the perfect guard there with my shield up. Shield is up, perfect guard, perfect guard. I thought he would continue to hit, but he didn't. Perfect guard. As you can see, I tried to do a dashing attack, but I missed. Here I didn't want to actually roll, but he rolled. There you go. Land a couple of R1s, but unfortunately I didn't time it right. And there, I remember that moment because I wanted to actually perfect guard and I dashed forward instead, for whatever reason. Now, keep your distance. Try to get some hits in between. Try to get some hits in between. Now, these weapons are not doing an absolute amount of damage. As you can see, they do about 200 per hit, which is not a lot, but it's a fast hitting weapon, so it is to be expected. It only allows you to be quite maneuverable, but it doesn't do massive amounts of damage, so don't expect that to be the case. They are light weapons. As you can see, I got the charge attack there. I got another one in. It did hit me in between though, and again, as you see me doing it again, dodging forward for whatever reason when he was doing his fury attack. Anyway, moving on with the fight, I keep getting some hits in between, trying to get those dodges and those perfect guard to break his guard. Unfortunately, in New Game Plus, it takes quite a lot more hits, but I think I nearly got it here, but he dodged. And then by the time I got greedy and tried again, the bar was no longer flashing, so there was no opening to a stagger hit. Again, land a hit here and there when you got the chance. Try not to expose myself too much. Here I do manage to get the perfect guard from that fury attack. And now he's going to do the dancing, so it's time to try to get as many perfect guards as I can. And as you see, I did manage, and I did finally get him open for the fatal strike. I buff myself completely, and boom, we land 1390 damage with that fatal strike. I managed to dodge that one just by an inch. I managed to dodge that one as well. I don't really know how, because his charge was unusually low compared to how long he normally charges that for. Again, keep my distance. Try to get those hits landing in between. Again, another opening. Land some hits. There we go. He's gonna do that dash forward. A little bit of an opening, not a long one though. He's gonna do the fury, not the fury attack, but that attack where he just goes nuts and starts slashing continuously. He nearly got me killed. I did manage to get back on my feet. I thought I was at a safe distance there, but I wasn't. Buff the weapon. He did get another hit. I did take the risk because I have no more heals, as you can see. But we get him down. There you go. And that's it. Now, one last example is a good example to show is these guys. Because when you do perfect guards against certain enemies, you will break their weapons. And as you can see, I'm going to do that against this guy here. So you see his weapons flashing. That means that his weapons are getting vulnerable and will snap if I continue to do perfect guards. Unfortunately, those little pesky carcass enemies decided to get free from their cages, so I thought, why not have them fight the puppet and do some damage to help me out. So as you can see, I just gather them around the puppet as much as I can, so they aggro the puppet, and I just watch them fight each other. If you didn't know, puppets and carcasses are natural enemies. Anytime you are in an area that there's both types of enemies, they will fight each other. Most times I found that the carcasses lose against unless it's one of those big carcasses. If it's just the normal ones, they will lose pretty much every time. Here I get the perfect guards. As you can see, the first weapon is broken. Now the second weapon, I'm going to try to break that one too, and it just did. You can see both of his weapons are right there on the floor. Now what this means is taking significant amount less of damage. So even when he hits me now, you can see the difference of what the damage he was doing before and the damage that he's going to be doing now when he actually hits me. So using the perfect guard as a technique to break your enemy's weapons is a very good strategy. I find it to be very efficient, especially in New Game Plus, because I mean the enemies hit hard and everything is very punishing. You lose so much health. So having your enemies lose their weapons and therefore having like a quarter, half their damage gone is a very good strategy. Here I am. I've finally managed to get him on his knees, and then I get the fatal strike. Get another perfect guard there, and another one, and another one. He decided to destroy those barrels, which actually was a good thing because I was a little bit trapped. Another perfect guard. You see how much damage he's doing now that his weapons have no blade? It's ridiculously less damage. I mean, it's barely noticeable. And that's it. One thing I forgot to mention, guys, about my weapons actually, is that both my Tyrant Murder Dagger handles, both of them, as you can see by the little logo on the corner of their boxes, both of them have the technique crank applied to them, so both of them scale A with technique, and that's the baseline of my damage. I forgot to mention that when I was explaining the weapons, and I thought it will be important to let you guys know of that. Sorry about that. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Cheerio.